Hey guys, in this video I wanted to talk about the Norinco MAK90 AK and to just sort of give some basic information on the rifle, a little bit of the history of the rifle and the politics of America at the time, and also wanted to compare this to sort of a more standard AK. So the Norinco MAK90 is a pretty interesting AK because sort of at the time, a lot of people did not think that Chinese-made guns were very good, but now Chinese AKs are considered among the better AKs on the U.S. market. So when they started to be imported, the Norinco AKs, they had sort of all the standard sort of military features. They had the bayonet, they had a cleaning rod, threaded muzzle, usually with just a muzzle nut on it. Pistol grips and wood stocks also came pretty standard on it. So then came along a lot of gun control bills, most notably the assault weapons ban. And these gun control laws, they start to kind of change what sort of guns can be imported. And so one of the things that these laws do, like the assault weapons ban, is they don't necessarily ban like a specific type of rifle, and they can't ban semi-automatic rifles. So instead they ban features of so-called assault rifles. So they ban pistol grips is one of the things that they ban. They ban bayonet lugs, they ban threaded barrels, and they limit the number of features that guns can have on them. So being that, you know, pistol grips and folding stocks and bayonet lugs and threaded barrels, since these are all like assault rifle features, they were taken off of the MAK90s. So you have some MAK90s imported like this that do not have any of those features. Now what's interesting about this particular MAK90 is that this is sort of a transitional model. So what they did was, you know, China was making the regular AKs with underfolders and stuff like that. And all of a sudden this law, you know, gets passed, and these guns can no longer be imported that way. So they still wanted to use the parts that they had on hand, but they couldn't be imported. So like this one here, this one has, if you can see it here, so this one has the cutout, and it's on both sides of it. This is for the underfolder stock to be installed here. So the underfolder stock could be put on there, but you couldn't have that feature anymore. So they plugged it with this, and this is actually pretty simple little. I think it's just stamped steel, and there's a rod that goes through, and then it's just steel on both sides. And this can actually be this can actually be removed by just pulling up the tag, the little tabs on both sides, and then you can just punch it straight through. And then you can put a folding stock on it. They also, you can sort of see that this had a bayonet lug on it at one time, and they actually just cut it off. So it just sort of looks a little bit more rough than one that was made without the bayonet lug, because this one had it on, and then it was cut off. It also has the hole in the bottom of the handguard here for the cleaning rod. So the cleaning rod would have gone through there, but because there's no bayonet lug to sort of hold it on, they just sort of omitted the whole cleaning rod. And then the end of the barrel here, where the threads are, it looks like they sort of scraped or ground off some of the threading. And I've tried to thread on a normal flash hider on here before that's meant for an AK, and it just kind of, it wouldn't quite go on all the way. But I'm sure there's a way of fixing this somehow, rethreading it maybe. But that's one of the features of this. So the Norinco, it follows the earlier pattern of the Type 1 and Type 2 AKs, where the gas vent holes are actually on the gas tube here. So as the piston goes back, the gas goes out of the holes here on the side of the gun. Whereas on the guns that came after the Type 2 AKs or the Type 3 AKs, they have the holes here actually on the gas block itself, and there's no holes on the gas tube. So that's sort of a holdover that the Chinese kept on their AKs. So this is a Maadi AK. This is an AK that was built on Russian machinery in Egypt. and these are known for being fairly high quality AKs, and I've really liked this AK so far. But this is pretty true to the standard Russian configuration of the time. The front sight is also different on the Norinco, to where it goes completely over the top of the front sight. It just has a little hole for the sight adjustment tool. But it's sort of a circle where it goes completely over the front sight. And sort of the Russian, now the Russian pattern AK, it doesn't go all the way over. It has an open top sight. Now, to me, aiming through the open top sight, I think is a little bit nicer. It still would protect the front sight from getting hit, but it just gives you a little bit better of a sight picture. So I'm not exactly sure why the Chinese kept that feature, but it is something that's kind of unique to the Norincos. Another feature of the MAK90 is a slightly extended and widened magazine release. So removing the magazine from the rifle is it's pretty easy to do. The pad definitely feels a little easier to press. Now, that's not to say the standard mag catch on the AK is bad. It's just you can definitely feel the difference, and I think I pretty much do prefer the MAK90 magazine release. On a side note, this thumbhole stock feels like absolute garbage. It's extremely wide, and trying to fit my hands through it, especially fitting my thumb around, it does not feel good at all. I mean, I think this stock was more of a legal necessity than just trying to make an actual nice ergonomic feeling pistol grip. It's still usable. You can still pull the trigger and kind of one-handed manipulate the rifle, but it feels like it kind of sucked doing that for a long period of time. Now, another thing that kind of took me by surprise with the MAK90 is that the overall finish and polish on the rifle it definitely seems very high quality. I honestly did not expect that from a Chinese rifle, but the bluing that's on this is it's very nice. It's very smooth. So like the side of the trunnion here on the Norinco is just it's very evenly, perfectly flat, smooth, pretty well polished looking, and a very nice finish on it. Whereas on the Maadi here, you could see imperfections and the finish and the metal, and it just seems like they took a little bit more care and extra time in finishing the trunnion on the Norinco. And the Chinese mags themselves are pretty different from a normal sort of Russian pattern mag or comblock pattern mag, where so the back of most of the Chinese magazines, they call them flatbacks, because you can see on a sort of a more normal AK mag, there's this ridge that kind of goes up, and it's straight along the back. Now, supposedly this gives this mag quite a bit more strength, but I don't think that the Chinese mag is necessarily flimsy for not having it. A lot of these Chinese mags will have China stamped on the bottom, and the follower is also a little different on the Chinese one. The Chinese one's on this side, and you can see that it's a little bit more flat. It doesn't sort of have that round follower profile on as the other. Both magazines work fine, and the Russian pattern gun. Chinese one fits very good, and actually this other magazine, and also some Polish mags that I have, they seem to fit a little tight in the Egyptian AK. So on the left side here, I have the Norinco parts, and this is the Egyptian parts. So you can definitely see the differences here in the stampings on the Egyptian. The Norinco one, it feels a little heavier, a little stronger, and I think it's just a little bit thicker. And it's just an overall very nicely finished piece of metal, whereas the Egyptian was just kind of your standard stamped AK dust cover. Just feels a little bit more light and maybe a little bit more flimsy. Recoil springs are pretty similar. In the Egyptian one, you just have the electro-penciled numbering, and Chinese one is stamped. Here's the bullet off of the Egyptian one, and it's just a pretty standard sort of black finish that's on it. You can see it's pretty worn off. Underneath it, the metal is just silver coming through. Now the Chinese bolt is it's very interesting. So now this plum color on the Norinco bolt here, this is a bit indicative to me of the bluing process. This plum color can happen just because of the temperature of the bluing, or of the material being blued, which I just think is pretty neat that it's this plum color. You also see a plum color. I know it's not related, but on German K90 AKs, sometimes the extractors will be this same plum color, and it's just from the bluing process. So the Norinco bolt carrier and piston here in my left hand, now both of these are very similar. The one in the Norinco just seems to be a little bit better shape. I just figured maybe it hasn't been shot as much as the Egyptian one, but overall, the feel and the finish again on the Norinco, it does feel superior. They are both numbered in the same areas, and both guns are numbers matching. So I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do with this Norinco yet. I don't know if I'm going to sort of try to save this and put an underfolder stock on it, or if I'm just going to pass this on as is. Right now it's not a very comfortable gun to shoot with the stock on, so if nothing else, I'm probably just going to replace the stock with a more traditional Chinese looking stock, and keep this too, just sort of for the history of the rifle. They're a pretty popular gun, and they're still fairly common out there, and they don't go for too much money, especially when they're in the band configuration like this. They go typically more money if they're pre-band. But you can get one of these for pretty cheap. You can try to restore it, put it back in its original military configuration, and you will nonetheless have a very nice shooting gun. So if you like this sort of stuff, please consider subscribing. I usually do older guns like military surplus and stuff like that, but if you like this stuff, you like newer guns, let me know in the comments, and I'll try to do stuff like this more often. But otherwise, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.